Welcome to You and Your Money. Today's episode features Holly Wanagar, Vice President and Associate Financial Advisor at WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors.
Holly, it sets the stage for today's discussion. Now, it's always important to pay attention to your investment portfolio in the fourth quarter as the year winds down so you can make sure everything is in balance and make sure any strategic changes that might be needed before the year's end. But I understand it's looking like it'll be an especially important time this year.
Yeah, it really will be, Wayne. There's just so much happening in the world today. It's causing there to be even more moving parts than normal. So keeping your portfolio balanced and the investments sound will help you. There are interest rate changes, inflation to contend with, changing tariff and tax policies, geopolitical tensions. So it's a lot to consider with regard to how all those things will impact your investments.
That's why it pays to work with a professional advisor like you and the team at WHZ, right?
Yes, exactly. But seriously, it really is a critical time to have your fingers on the pulse and watch what's happening and have a good understanding of how these changing tides might affect your investments.
Right. So let's jump into these factors that are up in the air. First, let's talk about what recently happened with the Federal Reserve. They cut rates by a quarter point in September.
Yes, they did on September 20th. And it wasn't really a slam dunk decision. We've had inflation running a bit higher than the Fed's target. And then, some touchy job reports, but that's ultimately they decided to cut the rates, again, aligned to their long-term position, but we'll see how the tariffs also play into that and possibly another rate cut coming.
Right. Are we talking about maybe more rate cuts coming up later this year or in the next year?
Yeah. The Fed's is meeting again October 28th and 29th. And economists are expecting one more rate cut this year. The president has been very vocal about wanting lower rates, which would boost the housing and broader economy. He's even threatened the chair, Jerome Powell, if he doesn't cut rates, to step down ahead of when his term ends in May. So there's definitely political pressure there, which adds another layer of uncertainty to markets, which they generally don't like.
All right, let's talk tariffs now. This seems to be creating a lot of chaos for business and investors.
Yeah, it really is. Just when investors were getting used to sort of the Trump tariff strategy, it was propose big hikes and then negotiate lower rates in trade deals, we got thrown a curveball. And in late August, the Federal Appeals Court ruled 7-4 that the president didn't have the authority to use these emergency powers for many of those new announcements. So it'll be interesting how this plays out as well.
So that must be creating headaches for companies.
Absolutely. They're having a challenge with where to import products from and what that cost will be and how to factor that into their business. The president's team will likely appeal the Supreme Court in the meantime, but businesses are still stuck in this limbo. And there's one thing that markets don't like, which is uncertainty. And this tariff situation is creating some uncertainty, which can be some planning challenges for businesses across multiple sectors.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom. You've mentioned there's some positive tax development.
Yeah, there is a silver lining. As I'm sure we've all heard, this one big beautiful bill act, or you can shorten it to the OBBBA, it's easier to say, was passed back in July. And there are a number of factors there that will provide some tax relief for most people. Again, we won't see that until the spring, typically, but it prevents the personal tax rates from rising again, which usually everyone's happy about, and provides additional tax breaks for seniors, parents, and tip workers. It also reinstates the state and local tax deduction, also referred to as SALT, which is huge for our listeners here in Connecticut. And companies can, again, enjoy 100% bonus depreciation from property that was acquired after January 19th of this year.
That could provide some economic stimulus, can it?
Yeah, exactly, Wayne. It's a powerful tailwind that should help both individual consumers and businesses. The reinstatement of the SALT deduction, as we mentioned before, will put money back in the pockets of many Connecticut families. And the big question is, how does inflation and all of these factors play into the final result? If those cause more hardships, the tax cuts may not be enough alone to keep people spending, but time will tell. We'll have to see how this all plays out.
And on that note, we also can't ignore what's happening internationally. How are those ongoing conflicts affecting markets?
Yeah, there continues to be the wars in Ukraine and Gaza that are serious concerns for us, especially as they could increasingly involve both the U.S. and Israel. Have ignored President Trump's calls to end the conflicts, and that's added to the trade tensions with China and the European Union. While that's not, a direct conflict, the language between trading partners has gotten pretty heated and needs to be monitored.
And these tensions seem to be escalating rather than de-escalating.
Yeah, the political uncertainty always creates volatility in markets. So really being aware of that and hope.
Let's talk numbers, Holly. Where are we sitting valuation-wise, and perhaps you can explain the concept of valuation?
Yeah, so in the S&P 500, it's hit new records recently with a forward price to earnings ratio of about 23.4 times. So that is actually down from its peak of around 28 to 29, which we saw in mid-2024. So there's been some improvements, but we still have this concentration issue. We're all familiar with the Magnificent Seven stocks that still make up about 34% of the S&P 500's market cap. So that's a pretty big concentration there in that index.
The Magnificent Seven. Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. Isn't that pretty much what they are?
Exactly. Yep. And it's that abnormally large concentration that leaves index investors very exposed to how these just 7 out of the 500 companies perform. The good news is that the company's earnings from both the S&P and overall Mag 7 companies has justified these valuations so far. And Wall Street analysts do expect the S&P 500 earnings to grow about 14% in 2026, which is up from previous expectations earlier this year, actually.
So we're talking the fourth quarter. Holly, what should our listeners be doing now with their portfolios?
Yeah, the key message right now, more than ever, is that investors should review their portfolios, ensure they're properly balanced. As we've seen this year, some of the stock and equity positions have ticked up with this performance. So make sure your portfolios are in balance and reflect the right risk tolerance. We're in an environment with record highs, good valuations, and significant uncertainty on multiple fronts, like we've been talking about: the Fed policy, tariffs, geopolitical, and market concentrations. What's
the WHZ approach to this environment?
So we believe in helping clients make informed decisions that both weigh the risks and opportunities. And in our Plan Well, Invest Well, Live Well process is designed to take those into account over the long haul. So we're not trying to time the markets in the short term, but helping clients ensure they're positioned correctly for whatever's coming next, and to stay on target to achieve their long-term goals. This is really an approach that's wise for anyone to take.
Any final thoughts for investors who are listening to our program today?
Yeah, don't go it alone in this environment. The current crosswinds are pretty complex, so working with a qualified financial advisor to ensure your portfolio positioning makes sense for you and your goals and your risk tolerance is very important. And remember, successful investing is about time in the markets, not necessarily timing the markets. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be thoughtful about your positioning.
Great advice as always, Holly. And for our listeners who want to learn more about WHZ, Strategic Wealth Advisors, or schedule a consultation, how can they reach you?
Yeah, they can visit us at whcwealth.com or give our office a call at 860-928-2341. We have locations both in Pomfret and Tolland, and we'd be happy to schedule a complimentary discovery session to discuss your situation to see how we might be able to help.
And Holly, this is the first time we've had you on the show. We've done these You and Your Money programs for over 20 years or so with people from WHZ. You mentioned that one of the offices in Pomfret, you are a Pomfret girl, aren't you? You grew up in Pomfret.
I did. Yep.
And you ended up at Eastern Connecticut State University. When did this thing about financial advising enter your radar?
Oh, it's very interesting. I had a great time at ECSU, and then shortly after college, I was talking to a friend of mine who worked in trust and investments, and I always liked statistics and analytics, and found my way down this path of helping people, which aligns to my values and WHC values through financial planning.
And in 2023, you became a certified financial planner. What does that mean? How can I become a certified financial planner?
Well, Wayne, if you are very disciplined and study a lot, you can pass a series of tests, and the main one is at the end, giving you the designation of certified financial planner. It is an additional layer of fiduciary oversight, actually, and there's only about, I think, 25% of financial advisors in our industry hold this designation. So it's pretty prestigious and was a challenging journey, but a very valuable one.
Holly primarily focused on helping early and mid-career clients to balance and prioritize their financial goals. Lastly, I want to hear about your 3 dogs. I have an affinity for doggies. What doggies do you have?
I have a few border collies. We've grown up with border collies, and I tend to rescue them. So at some point in their life, they've found the opportunity to come live here with me and retire early is what we like to say.
And on your website, the bio says, Holly enjoys running, playing soccer, gardening, and traveling. All right, let me pick those out one by one here. Are you still playing soccer?
I do, as much as my knees will let me. Yes, I do. Not quite as competitive as I did, but there's a women's league in Woodstock that I try to participate in on Sundays, which is a lot of fun.
Good for you. And how do the knees affect your running?
Yeah, they're not as strong as they used to be. I have picked up cycling on the Peloton over the last couple of years. That helps my knees sort of not hurt as much and stay strong without the impact of running. But I still do try to get out there and run, especially with my dogs. They love it too.
And you like gardening. What's your pride and joy? What do you grow that you're the most proud of?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I do like to grow some like winter squashes. I think butternut squash is probably my favorite.
And traveling. What's your favorite travel destination?
Well, that's a hard question, Wayne. I think so far in all my travels, Italy has been the most fun, but I do have family in Ireland, so that kind of holds a special place.
Good stuff. A little background behind our first-time appearance by Holly Wanniger, Vice President, Associate Financial Advisor at WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors. Holly, great job. Thanks for joining me this morning.
For more information regarding wealth management and customized financial planning with WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors, please visit WHZwealth.com. WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors offer securities and advisory services through Commonwealth Financial Network, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Fixed insurance products and services offered through CES Insurance Agency. They practice at 697 Pomfret Street, Pomfret Center, Connecticut 06259, and 392A Marrow Road, Tolland, Connecticut 06084. They can be reached at 860-928-2341. WHZ Strategic Wealth Advisors do not provide legal or tax advice. The tenured financial services team strives to support clients in achieving their financial life goals while providing absolute confidence and unwavering partnership for life.